Wilde and Tausch live from the Tundra Trio in advance of tonight's first round of the NFL Draft. Joining us now, I see Michelle Smallman is doing a different radio program with our teammates from ESPN Chicago. She is either the smart one or she's missing out on the fun of Wilde and Tausch.
I think we know the answer to that.
Joining us now, the other two-thirds of Unsportsmanlike, Evan Cohen, and the great Chris Canty on Wilde and Tausch.
So I am the sportsman part of Unsportsmanlike. Smallman is the like part of Unsportsmanlike, and Evan is the part of Unsportsmanlike.
We've never actually broken it down that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it is.
Chris, she's likable. You know sports, and I'm just un.
Yes.
How long did it take for you to understand Evan?
Oh, boy.
One phone call.
That's it?
One phone call. First phone call.
One call, that's all?
First phone call. First phone call when we got on the phone, I was like, this guy's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I got my advanced scouting report from Willie Colon, who worked with him before.
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay. And then I sat down to have lunch with the guy before we started up the show, and I was just like, okay, settle in. This is going to be a process. You know how sometimes you can step out on the field and you say, oh, man, that guy can play?
Yeah.
That was not that with Evan Cohen. It was not. It was the exact opposite end of
It's
the
like a 3-year red shirt type deal, and maybe
I was a gray shirt.
There you go.
Exactly.
Wait, do you remember?
Exactly.
We haven't actually talked about this. That lunch, and Jason and Mark have known me forever, so they'll believe this. I remember I brought a notebook, and I was itching to break out the notes, and it took me to, like, I would say 45 minutes into lunch. I'm like, so you guys want me to go through this? Like, you're like, yeah, fine, just go through it already.
He couldn't wait. He couldn't wait to get to the damn notebook. We're like, dude, let's just have a conversation.
None
and
of
get
that's
to know each
surprising.
other.
Yeah.
No, I needed the notebook.
So what did you learn about Evan when you in that first meeting, besides the fact that he's nuts?
Besides the fact that he's corny,
Yeah.
a little bit. Okay. What I learned though, and with respect, there is nobody that works harder in the industry than Evan Cohen. Nobody works harder than this dude. Nobody wants to be great more than Evan Cohen. There's nothing that he won't do for the betterment of our show, including completely debasing himself, where everybody looks at him as the laughingstock.
Yes.
But there is nothing that he won't do for the team. He puts himself. He puts himself above the team.
Wait, what?
He puts himself above the team in terms of making himself the show, so we can all laugh at him. But no, he's a good dude, and he works so hard, and I appreciate that because this guy just wants to be great. He wants our show to be great, and he's willing to sacrifice whatever it takes to that end.
And you know what's great? He's super uncomfortable. You could rip him, and he's comfortable.
Yep.
Here you're saying nice things, and he's cowering
Well,
over in the
I was
corner.
just thinking about how much I feel the same about 𝙒𝙖 and how he works so hard all the time, and he's so prepped, and he's so passionate about radio, which I think is really important in this, and how awkward it must be for Jason having an ex-player who's not that way.
Wow.
Did you see how he pivoted there?
Yeah, he's a good pivoter. So you guys have been here a day. What, Chris, you've come here to play a
And
bunch.
now we've pivoted
Yeah.
again.
So when you came here, it was when you came here to play. Obviously, I think players look at it and say, "Man, great history, great tradition." What else, especially when it's cold and all that stuff? How much of that stuff mattered as a former player when you would come into Lambeau?
Oh, it didn't matter at all because every time you came to Lambeau was a special, special place. So the whole bit about the frozen tundra, while it is cold, that's not what you're thinking about when you come out of that tunnel. When you come out of that tunnel, you're looking up, you're seeing Bart Starr, you're seeing Don Hudson, you're seeing all the all-time greats, and you're thinking, this is football royalty. I mean, I know a lot of former players refer to Canton as the Pro Football Hall of Fame. They refer to it as football heaven. Well, I'll tell you what, Lambeau Field gives Canton a run for its money in terms of being football heaven. This isn't a religious experience. This is a pilgrimage anytime you come to Green Bay, Wisconsin, if you're a football fan. And so as a player, you're not thinking about how cold it is. You're thinking you want to show up and show out just because of how special this venue is. This is the most special venue in the National Football League, period. I never played for the Green Bay Packers. Came close a couple of times, visited as a free agent. Never played for the Green Bay Packers. But coming here every single time, it is a pilgrimage, a religious experience.
Hold on. Jason Wilde covers the Packers forever, right? Did you know that Canty came here twice to visit?
So I did, because there is occasionally prep that's done on this show. I know it doesn't.
Today
seem
is
like
one of
it.
those days?
One of those rare days. So I
You want to see the show sheet? It's less than usual.
I went back into the archives. For Packers fans, tell them the story of the Packers' free agent interest in you and what ultimately prevented it from happening.
So we had 2 times. All right, so the first one was when I was a free agent in 2009, and I visited the New York Giants, and I had a scheduled visit for the Green Bay Packers the very next day. As you know, first 48, 72 hours of free agency, that's where all the big money is spent. The Green Bay Packers, although they were never players in the expensive part of free agency under Ted Thompson, I was one of the rare exceptions where they considered it. Mm-hmm. And so I was scheduled to fly out to visit the Packers. The New York Giants didn't want to pay me what I wanted. I was looking for a certain number. They didn't want to pay me more than what they were paying 𝙒𝙀 or Justin Tuck. And so I had to visit to Green Bay lined up right after that. Well, a snowstorm rolls into the New York metro area that night when I'm visiting the Giants. And as the storm is coming in, the Green Bay Packers are like, look, we just need you to get here. We can't commit to the number, but we need you to get here because, you know, we're willing to play in that ballpark. We're willing to spend what it takes. But as I was trying to get out of New York City because of the storm coming, and the Giants didn't let me leave, and they ultimately ended up giving me the contract. So that's how Green Bay missed out the first time. The second time.
Okay.
So I remember the second time vividly because they were so disappointed that they didn't get you the first time. You were a priority from what I recall.
That is correct. And so when I became a free agent after I got cut by the New York Giants in 2013, the Green Bay Packers set me up for a visit, came into town, but
Oh, they came to you.
no, I came into town.
Oh, you came to town.
I came into town, toured the facilities, looked around, everything. I loved it. I mean, the facilities are second to none because they invest so much in that team. But 𝙒𝙖 Hall of Fame player, should be a Hall of Fame executive, got on the phone with me and my agent, convinced me that the Baltimore Ravens was the right place for me to be. And because of my respect for 𝙒𝙖, because I'm a historian of the game, couldn't tell the guy no.
So I had heard another
that's
story,
how it
though.
happened.
We haven't talked about this. So, Jason, this is the story I heard. Second visit, he said, you know the movie Hoosiers, Coach stays, I play? He said, 𝙑 goes, I come.
That's 4 years later. It would have been funnier if it was 09. 13, not as funny.
Oh, you're really going to do the math on that? That's a good bit.
It's not bad. It's not your best.
So now that we've covered your free agency,
Yep.
we just got done going over Tausch's draft day where he thought he was going to go earlier. He waited and waited, started to sour a little bit, and then he ends up with his home state team. Think back to your draft day. What are your recollections of that?
I hated it.
I feel like that's the answer I give more
There's
often
only
than not.
one player that's going to be happy where he gets drafted tonight. Do you know who that is?
Yeah, Cam Ward.
That's it. Everybody else is going to think they deserve to be drafted higher. My draft day was awful. I actually didn't go day 1. I went day 2. I was a 4th-round pick, the last pick in the 4th round. The irony of that is that the Philadelphia Eagles traded out of that. No, the New England Patriots traded out of that spot so the New York Giants could trade in. I mean, not the New York Giants. The Dallas Cowboys could trade in and draft me. So that was the irony of that draft day. But I was the last pick in the 4th round. And it got to the point as I was watching the draft on day 1 where I just stopped watching it altogether. I said, you know what? To hell with this. I'm going to go do something else. Jerry Jones calls me the next day and says, you want to be a Dallas Cowboy? I'm like, sure. Just tell me, you know, what airport. Yeah, like, whatever. Like, all right, I'm going to the Dallas Cowboys. Great. I'm a 4th-round pick. So I know that my NFL life is going to be more of an uphill climb than the guys that went on day 1.
By the time you were drafted, Evan had stopped writing down the names.
No, all 7 rounds, Jason. Come on now.
Yeah.
We've talked about how, and I haven't done it yet, I have every notebook from every show I've ever done since 2003. And so at some point when I have more time on my hands, probably when my kids are away for camp, I need to go and find his draft to see what I wrote about him. Like terrible pick by the Cowboys in the 4th round. But I liked him coming out of college. I always told him I wanted him on the Patriots because of my obsession with the Parcells and Belichick guy.
Yeah.
He played for 𝙒𝙖. So I'm like, oh, you got to go get that guy. Tausch, I don't know if we've ever I'm actually going to have a serious, real conversation with you for a second.
That's interesting.
Nice
It may not
change of
last
pace.
long, but I don't think we've ever talked about your draft day because you were going to stop playing football in college. You decided to stick around and 5th year.
Yep.
And then you ended up as a 7th-round pick.
Yeah.
Did you think you were going to get drafted?
So yes, I did, and I think, and this is kind of what Chris was saying. We all want to have control of what's happening, and in this case, most people can control. You want to go work at ESPN West Palm. You want to go do that. You can control that. You put in the work, and then it's out of your hands, and you still feel like if you're watching it, maybe you have your buddies, and you're sitting there and you see guys that you feel like you've went through this process you should go ahead of.
Yes.
And when that happens
Yes.
and your friends are disappointed, it just becomes a kind of a soul-sucking experience until you actually get picked.
Right.
So once I ended up getting picked, there was relief, but then it was also let's just get to work at that point because you want to get picked higher because there's more money involved and all of those things that come into play, but you have nothing to do. So Joe Thomas has had it right from the jump. Go do something fun. If I had to do it again, you go fish, go golf, have somebody reach out. They're going to pick you if they want to pick you. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your living room or if you're doing something that you enjoy.
How many picks behind Brady were you drafted?
25.
And who had the better career?
I think Tom. Now I did see, and this will.
Nobody's had a better career.
I don't think so.
You don't think Tausch did?
I thought because I was 224 and I had an 11-year career and all the stuff, I thought that Rick Gosselin put this thing out.
I remember this.
He put this thing out just recently. The best picks at every spot from 1 to 280, and I was thinking, 224, I'll have a shot. Jay Ratliff.
That's
got
his
me.
buddy.
Jay Ratliff,
draft
and
class.
I couldn't. And my kids were sitting there, they're scrolling through because it's on Twitter, and I said I can't even argue. He's a 3 or 4-time Pro Bowler. I thought maybe I was his runner-up.
We were at dinner.
and I looked
Wait a
at
minute.
that as a positive.
We were at
Think
dinner.
about that's crazy. Jay Ratliff, who was a groomsman at my wedding, by the way, good friend of mine. Jay Ratliff
strong.
was 224, pick 224.
Yep.
He was the 4th D lineman that the Cowboys took in that draft class alone.
Yeah.
Behind.
DeMarcus Ware, Marcus Spears, myself.
Wow, that's
a
good
ridiculous
That
draft.
is a good draft class.
That's 74 Steelers style.
And
let's
we
be
had
honest.
Marion Barber in that draft class, too.
Wait, so you guys both had 11-year careers.
Yeah.
Is there any significance to that? Do guys that seems like a lot, right? 10 years. What's for the pension?
4
3 and a
years.
half. Yeah, you got to be 4.
Okay, so it has,
Yeah,
but
four-
that
four accrued
speaks
seasons,
volumes
something like
about
that.
both of you guys, right? 11 years. That's pretty
But
significant.
you know
right?
what? And Tausch talked about it. Once you get drafted, once you get past the initial disappointment because you feel like you got picked later than you should have, it's about getting to work. And I think when you're a later round draft pick, if you're a day 3 guy, if you're 4th round on, there's no guarantee that you're going to make the team. So
you're trying to make the team every year, in
You're
essence.
making the team every
You never
year.
lose that attitude.
You're making the team every year. Like when you're not entitled to anything when you're picked at that point in the NFL draft. So like that, I don't know about you. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that
That's fine. They're not
chip,
gonna be smart if they come out of his
that chip was always on my shoulder.
Well, Tausch's favorite phrase when we talk about the draft and draft status is 7th-round picks constantly have to prove they belong in the league. First-round picks always have to prove that they don't because they just
You
keep
can use
getting
that, Evan.
opportunities.
Write that down in your notebook.
I'm really glad that Evan brought up the fact that you guys had 11-year careers because it segues into the question I wanted to ask Chris because we've talked a little bit about this. And by the way, Chris Canty, Evan Cohen
Good,
of
Jason.
Unsportsmanlike
It's been a little
joining
long.
us on
Good job.
One is not like the other. By the way, just want to point that out.
One play quarterback, no big deal.
I can't believe you didn't wear the jersey and take it out of the frame. I'm so disappointed. I asked Brian Gutekunst this question earlier this week, and then I saw Jay Glazer talking about it, that teams are now trying to gauge how much players love the game. And the reason I asked Goody about it is because I hear him say all the time over the last X number of drafts, this guy really loves football. He's all about ball. And I was thinking, I would never question that with you guys, right? You love the game. But because of the economics, the explosion of the salary cap, the money these guys can make because of NIL now and guys coming into the league with money potentially, it's not necessarily I remember guys, they would hang on for one more year to get one more year of NFL money. They don't have to do that now. Do you see a shift in today's player, not to make you guys old-timers, but do you see a shift in that of you really do need to discern whether or not the guys you're drafting love football? Because if they don't, they're probably going to have brief careers, and you're probably not going to be happy with your pick in terms of the long-term
I think if anything, it makes it easier to filter through the guys that don't love football just because they have an opportunity to be millionaires before they even get drafted into the NFL. So you know whether or not, you know, a guy is going to change based on what he's compensated, right? You're going to see him get monetized at the collegiate level. Some of these guys are getting NIL in high school. So, I mean, it's not as if you don't have any data points to lean on when it comes to trying to discern whether or not this guy really loves ball. Now, if you want to get a sense of whether or not this guy is all about football, talk to the other guys that are in the locker room with him. Because you can lie to a lot of people. You can't lie to the locker room. But the locker room is the ultimate truth teller when it comes to, you know, whether or not a guy is built the right way, whether or not he has the right sports character to bring into your franchise. So I think that's the part that I think has become easier for talent evaluators. Because these guys are monetized at such an earlier age, you get to see more of the issues that could potentially crop up because they're getting paid a lot of money.
And that's why 𝙒𝙀𝙐𝙀 didn't get drafted. What happened?
I was at his birthday party. I don't know why they didn't bring that up.
Do you think on the flip side, because of what those guys have and being told how great they are and being paid and everything else, that they don't have the same chip that you guys might have had coming into the league?
Well, that goes the other way, too. When you have a guy that really loves ball and he's paid for it in college, there is a, what do they call it? It ends up being a situation where there's a realization that, hey, I get paid money to do this well. I'm going to work harder at it because I want more money. It's that positive reinforcement. So, I mean, you could say that, oh, well, the guy gets the carrot, he stops working for it. Well, no, you see it in some instances where the guy just wants more carrots. Like he's like, you know what? Oh, I can play football and get paid for this and be a millionaire with NIL in college. Think of what I can do if I work harder and get to the NFL. And it just keeps going and going and going. So I think you get guys that fall into both buckets. But now, because you can see them get paid earlier in their athletic career, it makes it clear and obvious what those guys' motivations are as they continue to rise.
And you would have been a big NIL guy if they had it during your days, right?
No, I would have just loved to not had to pay.
Linemen aren't NIL guys. Linemen are not NIL guys.
I'm just looking for NIL reimbursement for the walk-on years that I had.
Right? Where is that?
That would be nice.
Where is
but
that?
That would have been nice. What do you guys think from now that let's talk draft tonight since we're here. What do you guys think the big storylines are tonight?
Shedeur. I think it starts with Shedeur where he goes, and I think that, you know, CC and I both have been playing out. I
saw ESPN bet 21.5, right? Is that the number?
Yes, correct.
What do you think?
This is impossible because I think the Steelers almost have to take him if they stay at 21. I wonder if the Steelers will consider trading down to avoid having to take him if they don't want to take him.
But isn't that admitting that you don't want to take him?
Yes, but at least you get paid off to not take him. So I think that what CC and I have been trying to do is connect a lot of dots, right? So we have Schefter on every week who's unbelievable with us. And he talked about the idea that Jacksonville is this wild card. Then you have Diana Rossini of The Athletic saying people around the league think Jacksonville is going to be electric in the draft. Then you have Peter Schrager, ESPN NFL analyst, saying Cleveland could trade down. So we've been playing out this hypothetical of
that
this
Cleveland trade down is fascinating.
Yeah, so that's what we've been playing out, this mega deal that Cleveland trades down with Jacksonville. Jacksonville moves up. They're the Travis Hunter team. Could Cleveland make a million moves? Could they trade back in to get Shedeur? I think a lot of it centers around Shedeur, but I think the hypothetical of the Jacksonville-Cleveland that we've been playing out is interesting, which has not been reported anywhere. We're just trying to connect dots.
Yeah, beyond Shedeur Sanders for me, I think the next interesting thing about tonight's draft is not any players that are going to be selected at all. I think it's what happens with the veteran player movement. There's a crop of players that are going to be moved at some point over the weekend.
Pickens.
I mean, Trey Hendrickson, Pickens, Kirk Cousins, 𝙒𝙄𝙀 Alexander. Like, there's just a whole crop of veteran players that could potentially be on the move this weekend. Teams are looking to move off of them, and I think the draft is an inflection point when it comes to the offseason calendar where teams are going to look to solidify some needs. There are going to be teams that miss out on prospects that they want to draft this year, and they're going to look to the veteran trade market in order to fill those needs.
So, Jason, you reported earlier this week that Aaron Rodgers hates J.J. McCarthy.
I remember that report. That was good.
No, Do you believe, Jason? I know you spoke. You've said this publicly. You spoke to Rodgers this week.
I texted with him, yes.
Okay, this week. Do you believe you know where he's going?
No, because I don't think he knows where he's going.
Okay,
But your facetious report of mine,
yes.
just so people who weren't listening earlier in the week know that that's not what I reported.
Oh, Tausch, what do you think? You're with him every day.
Yeah,
Did you report
I know
that?
what he thinks.
I do believe that he is waiting, whether he'll admit it or not, and I know he does have genuine things going on in his inner circle with people he cares about that are dealing with stuff. That was not a made-up story on McAfee. I do believe he is waiting to see if J.J. McCarthy falls flat on his face.
So does that eliminate
my
Pittsburgh?
belief.
Oh, right. So your belief, Jason Wilde's belief, having texted with Rodgers this week. Do you believe that Pittsburgh is then eliminated? Because what would change in the Pittsburgh dynamic?
Them getting Kirk Cousins would be
Well,
fun,
yeah.
right?
Well.
Like, because he has told them, and he said this to Pat last week, that, hey, if you need to move off of me, if you need to move on, I understand.
Does he want Pittsburgh to move off of him?
I think there's, again, my opinion,
what a
not
great
my report.
follow-up.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
EVCO.
Nice.
Not all.
Make sure you get that.
You guys got this
Evan,
stuff
what
too.
a
We
great
gotta
job
let you
breaking
go.
He's
that.
gonna, he gonna pop a hamstring with that backpedaling. My goodness.
Jason Wilde, in your belief, does Aaron Rodgers want Pittsburgh to move on from him?
Didn't we already do this?
No, you just stumbled.
And Bumble.
Grab the hamstring.
Jason Wilde, in your belief, does Aaron Rodgers want Pittsburgh to move off of him?
Not entirely, because I think he still wants to have a backup plan of somewhere else to go if J.J. McCarthy does not fail in Minnesota.
Jason Wilde, in your opinion, if the Pittsburgh Steelers make a move for Shedeur Sanders or Kirk Cousins by Monday, is Aaron Rodgers going to be heartbroken or will he be fine?
I think he'll be fine.
Jason Wilde, in your belief, if the Minnesota Vikings say to Aaron Rodgers,
This is super fun, by the way.
I don't mind it. You always complain
great.
nobody asks you questions.
This is great.
Go ahead,
great.
EVCO.
texted with Aaron Rodgers this week, in your belief, if the Minnesota Vikings and his friend Kevin O'Connell calls Aaron Rodgers this week and says, Aaron, we're going to be friends on Monday. We're just not going to be business partners, so to speak, on Monday. Will he be heartbroken?
Heartbroken is strong,
Will he be upset?
but I think he's
Disappointed.
Disappointed would be a good word, sure.
Okay.
All right, that was really fun. I was going to get rid of you
Is
guys
there
at least
another
3 or 4
team?
minutes ago.
Is there another team,
San Francisco.
San Francisco, that he would be interested if they called him?
I think there's probably several teams he'd be interested if they called him. I don't know.
Are there other teams of those
I
several?
got pictures of Apollo here. I didn't get information
That's the dog. Okay,
into his
hold on.
plans.
These are fair questions. Are there?
If you do say so yourself.
Yeah, I do. As a matter of fact.
What a great job I'm doing. Oh, thank you.
This is a police station interrogation.
This is
I love it.
there's the heat
I love it.
The heat lamp is
I
coming
love
down.
it, right?
Jason Wilde, in your opinion, are of those other teams that he would be interested if they called, are any of them realistic calls that could be made? In other words, I'm sure he'd love to play for Kansas City. I'm sure he'd love to play for Philadelphia. Those are not realistic calls as long as their quarterbacks are healthy.
I will just say this about him, and it goes back to loving ball and loving competition. I don't think he wants to play just to play. I think there are teams that if, let's say something catastrophic happens to their quarterback and they have a Super Bowl team and now they've lost their quarterback, he would do a Joe Flacco to those teams in a heartbeat.
So he'd consider
But I don't
waiting
think he
around
wants to work
Roger
just to work.
Clemens style,
Yes.
waiting for when the Yankees need me, I'll play, but if they don't need me, I don't care.
Did Clemens have it where he only had to pitch at home, too? What a power move that
I don't
is.
think so. You work every other day.
What does that mean?
You do the same thing.
From home. Right?
I'm not going to get into how many. We can put our days off against each other. I feel pretty good about
I
that.
took 2 days
You
off.
took 2 weeks off.
When did I take 2 weeks off?
End of the year.
We all do
Yeah,
together.
I'm sure.
Do we not?
We do.
You guys were
we
great.
do.
Appreciate you guys.
Now Tausch wants us out. All right, guys.
Thanks for coming by.
All right, see ya.
See you guys later.